Hello, basically myself Sunil Ramakrishna. Here basically we are discussing one of the topic city creation. In this basically we are discussing the future data basically. One of the person told that basically by Sunil, are you there in future basically of software industry? That is this group basically asked. Just taking as an example basically. So that basically it should be clear basically. This group basically asked the question basically. And this group basically are almost people basically are or each and every company basically have a branch in Mumbai basically. So assume that basically Mumbai asked Sunil R. Nair, are you there in future of the software industry basically? And few people asked this also basically. Are you there in future also basically? That also basically they asked. So this is basically specially for that group basically. So then basically we connected to Supreme Court. Supreme Court basically taken the decision that basically Prime Minister basically have to die basically. So just see basically lots of people say that basically भाई कानून का दरवाजा खटखटाओ कानून का दरवाजा and few people says that कानून तो अंधा है भाई. So you can just imagine basically the movies are also basically created basically especially for high courts basically takes the decision of states, then basically the Indian army groups basically, then Indian army basically connects to what basically the Indian army is connecting to example basically prime minister died basically, so they only basically have to handle the situation basically, they only have to handle the situation. Few people says like this basically that uh, RDX basically from where basically the terrorist group basically gets basically without police permission this is going to get basically. Then few people told that that is not possible basically. Without police permission not a single RDX basically leaks in front of the world basically, that is not possible basically. So few people basically told that basically that is not possible basically. Few people basically told that basically two sides basically are there. One is that plane basically which is getting crashed in Himalaya and Mount Everest basically, that is thousand plane basically which is getting crashed, and another side basically is vitamin basically which is getting created and which are basically are asking basically that prime minister should die or not die basically. So see basically the groups basically, it's a basically digital war basically you can say basically, the blood war basically you can say that also basically, it's a war only basically you can say. Prime minister basically will die basically, so prime minister basically is going to sit basically like that basically, भाई मैं मरने वाला हूँ मैं तैयार हूँ मरने के लिए, like this basically is going to basically, no, that is not possible basically. He will basically fight basically that I will not die basically. So that is plane crash basically. Few people says that basically whether it is correct or not, that basically we don't know. He says basically that I will not die, I will fight basically. And doctors basically are telling that basically the data basically we are collecting basically, let's see basically every month basically we will collect the data and let's see basically whether he should die or basically is not supposed to die basically. He is supposed to die or he is not supposed to die basically. So what is correct basically, that basically this group only basically might be knowing. Why? Because this group are responsible for Indian security basically. If anything happens to India, then this group will be responsible. This group will be responsible. So one of the person told that basically, you basically went to Mumbai and basically assume that Sunil Nair basically went to Mumbai. Just taking as an example basically, this type of thing basically might happen basically in future. For example, Sunil Nair went to Mumbai basically in Mumbai and basically not got the job, and he basically came back basically in night only basically. When he basically landed that Vadodara city, at that time basically the 70 percentage of Mumbai basically got ended basically. Just taking as an example, basically, it basically really it has not happened basically. Just taking as an example. So one of the person told that basically who will be responsible here basically. Then few people says that basically this group also basically will be responsible and basically because these groups are basically to secure the Indian army basically. Sorry, to secure the Indian states and cities basically. India state and cities basically. So one of the person told that yes, yeah, basically it's not so easy basically. Few people say that basically, lots of people say that यार prime minister तो बन गया अब तो जल्द से. So see the जल्द से basically. One of the person told that basically, Sunil, you basically told that basically in software company basically if anybody becomes project manager or basically the supreme software delivery head, they basically have the very good life basically. But few people says that basically no, basically it's very tough life basically to become the project manager also basically. It's not so easy basically. It's not so easy to become the project manager also. It's not so easy to become the project manager also basically. So one of the person told that basically. Again back to US Army. Why? Because USA plane basically is getting crashed in America, sorry, in Himalaya. That's why basically I have taken US Army and Indian Army basically. Few people say that basically are still basically I don't understand basically these two groups basically are friend or basically enemy. That basically one of the person asked the question basically. Then one of the person asked the question basically, public and political people are friend or basically enemy basically. Then few people say that basically you can see the security group basically how much tight security basically when the prime minister visits the Vadodara city, when chief minister visits the Vadodara city, then it was that yes basically it's very high tight security basically. So this is the reason basically. That is this basic. Just now basically we are discussing basically. That is the one is the example of plane crash, and another is basically prime minister will die or not die. That question basically that is a vitamin question basically. So you can just imagine basically the US Army and the Indian Army basically are friend or enemy basically. That basically comes into the picture basically. That comes to the picture basically. These groups are friend or basically enemy basically. That's very dangerous basically. It's very difficult to answer only basically. Then the things basically connects to this story basically. This two group basically. That is Abraham Lincoln basically was killed basically by this person basically. And he was just basically 27 to 28 year only basically when he basically died basically. So he basically died in very young age basically. Very young age basically. And then basically is the news channel basically, which basically group displayed the news that basically the Bin Laden basically attacked the USA basically, but it was not basically. Few people say basically whether it is correct or not basically, that need to check basically. That now this basically one of the person told that Bin Laden जैसी story है basically, the Bin Laden story basically, like this how many stories are basically there in this world basically. One of the person asked that question also basically, how many kahanis basically are created basically, how many stories basically are there in this world basically. So this group basically told that basically Bin Laden is there basically, Bin Laden heavy. You can just, and that basically the search engine group also basically told that basically Bin Laden is also basically there. So one of the person told that basically search engine basically just take the data from here basically, from here. Like this basically they don't know anything basically. They basically just gets the data, but which data basically they are getting basically they basically never able to track that basically. So from where basically that story basically came basically. That basically is full of most of people say that basically that Oxford group basically is there basically. That group basically might be into the picture basically, because each and every future story basically they only basically have the rights basically to create basically this group. Then basically this group Indian group basically, Indian group also basically told basically that Bin Laden basically exists. And Bin Laden like person basically is also there, and he basically attacked the America. So next video basically we are going to see a little bit more about this story.